you have a choice of either taking responsibility or passing the buck. And of course, right now in the news again is Harvey Weinstein, and I think Jessica Mann is the latest lady who is apparently.
I've even stopped paying attention to that. But
and she's again, it's the usual thing of, well, we met up, he did things, we did things, we had a few flirtatious messages afterwards, and then we met up and we did it again, and I was abused. Now, this is a problem because most people are looking at it and saying, well, but you knew. How can you go to someone's bedroom at 11 o'clock at night and expect there to be any other agenda? So there is the logic even before you go. So that's a very tricky one for these ladies to get out of. But then there's the emotion. In other words, there is what we call the power differential, which is immensely important. And for instance, in the professions, in law, in medicine, they talk about the power differential between the professional and the client, or shall we say authority. So by going to see a professional, the professional has authority over you, at least in terms of knowledge, but it is also more fundamental than that. So you have, the professional has a potential advantage of authority, and people are tuned to respond to authority figures emotionally because we are tribal and we are hardwired to respond to structure, hierarchy, leadership. So if someone in a position of authority suggests something to you, you're much more likely to do it automatically without thinking.
And you'll do it for one of two reasons, and they're both emotional. One is out of fear. So if someone in a position of power who intimidates you, you'll do things out of fear. And the other reason is you'll do it out of reward as well. So, for example, you'll get... and now, look, I'm no fan of Harvey Weinstein, and I think it's been good that he's actually been caught, because there was elements where he probably did abuse his position, but there's also situations where he took advantage of his position of power to influence someone by giving them a reward, which would be a successful acting career, which is their choice. Now, you talk about this, someone going into his room at 11 o'clock at night, and you probably realise that actually you're going there because you're going to get either a benefit out of it, because you're not going to go there out of fear. Because let's face it, if you want to stick to some people, if they want to stick to their principles and they don't want to partake in that level of activity with the Harvey Weinsteins on this world, then I've got to say, find another career to acting. Now, if they've chosen to go into acting and they've chosen to take advantage of a situation, albeit they're not comfortable with it, they're compromising their own principles to be able to do that. Now, if he forces himself on them and actually intimidates them and physically touches and physically harms them to be able to do it, that's a whole different ballgame.
Of course it is, and nobody will argue with that.
And it's also why a lot of his cases, I believe, are actually falling flat as well, aren't they? Because of that. Because it was done with consent. And when you come out 20 years later, because let's face it, a lot of these actresses who've lost their, let's say, their A-level status or whatever, to get their media attention, they're still getting a reward from that by then saying, actually, it happened to me. And it's interesting, because I wanted to bring up another point. Go on.
There are many facets.
On this topic.
There are many facets as well. I don't think anyone has any sympathy with a lady who goes to someone's bedroom at 11 o'clock at night and they know what the deal is.
Yeah, but they can say no. They can say no, but the thing is, there's also a prevention way of not putting yourself in that position in the first place. Logically.
The difficulty is, as we just explained, with the power differential, they don't think logically. If they were thinking logically, they may say no, but they can't think logically. So the onus is theoretically on the perpetrator. That said, the perpetrator may say, I gave you a chance. Before you came in, you knew that I'd be turning up with my...
Yeah, but it doesn't mean as soon as she's walked through the door, he's that's a sealed deal either. Because she can actually say no. So she could have gone. She could have gone into the bedroom, and let's say hypothetically, because we don't really know any of these scenarios. She's walked into the bedroom, and then all of a sudden, you talk about her rational thought has kicked in, and she's decided actually.
No, but they
can't. Go
can't.
with
they don't think rationally.
No,
this is the whole point.
Because some people will go in and say, actually, this is not working for me.
Yes,
but
most people won't. So the Milgram experiment was simply a group of people who were collected, and a man wore a white coat and called himself a professor and told them that via a machine they would test someone in another room with questions, and if they got the questions wrong, they would administer electric shocks. And almost all people complied with the man in the white coat, to the extent that some of the electric shocks were theoretically lethal because the man in the next room stopped shouting. Very, very few people actually said no, they wouldn't do it. Very few. So once you enter a situation where there's an enormous power differential, we are programmed to respond automatically. And that's the problem, because when the woman comes out of that situation and she thinks, oh my God, what did I do? I didn't want to, but I did it. Then she's either going to take responsibility and say, well, I knew the deal, I shouldn't have gone there in the first place. Or she's going to pass the buck. But none of it is cut and dry, because they should have known the deal before they went there.
Look,
the perpetrator will say, well, yes, of course, they could have said no.
Not all women are to blame. I know there's women who put themselves in situations that they're regretful afterwards, and it's interesting actually, because the whole Me Too movement has sort of received a bit of a backlash actually, because the consequences of what they did. Now, it's all right, and we've talked about this before. It's all right calling people out and actually exposing them, but you've got to do it within a certain time frame that has actually happened, not 20 years later. So after the Me Too movement, all these things have come out. Now you're finding, and this is more research based in America, that there's men, and actually even women, there's probably as many as 60%, that men in companies are reluctant to employ an attractive woman. And I put the emphasis on attractive women, but there's a reason. So all these women who all of a sudden are not getting these senior positions and things like this, because the thing is, it's very hard when you're not getting the mentoring and things like this, and men are not, and men are sort of more scared of putting themselves in a situation where they are dealing with one-to-one situations with women, or not being able to, or not wanting to be a woman alone, which means actually, why would I go through the hassle of putting myself in a situation where by employing someone that could potentially actually do me damage? And actually that and whether we think about it rationally and say, well, that is wrong. So to a point that is wrong, because not all women are the same.
But they're doing it out of fear.
However, that one is based on fear. Two, it's very much a subconscious thing of what's actually happened, because what we experience and what we actually witness as well, which is going to the mirror neuron thing. All of a sudden, part of our subconscious mind saying, actually, your amygdala starts flaring up because something's telling you, actually, this could potentially be a hazardous situation if it gets out of hand. So what's the best thing to do is to actually avoid it. And they avoid it altogether.
Exactly.
Now, there was this one woman, I think she was a COO of Facebook, and saying actually, and she talked about this, and she says actually the best solution is actually to put women to actually get more women in more senior positions. Really, is that the answer? So the thing is, there's this whole thing that's happened, and you think putting women in high situations is the answer. It's not.
Of course it isn't.
And
it needs to be merit-based.
And also, and Jordan Peterson has talked about this. He says men are very competitive. Men work extremely long hours as well. They're not going to actually sit aside and let that happen. And the thing is, and this is where I get, and this is where, and I think women are entitled to every single opportunity. You know, providing they actually put the workload in, they put and they probably compete just as aggressively. But here's the thing, because women complain, and a lot of women complain about men not employing and things like this. Do you know something? If you're that good at what you do, there's nothing to stop you. There's nothing to stop many women, and many women have done it. Is actually there's a niche in the market for that. Go and start your own business because you can do. The entry levels into starting a business these days is far easier now than it ever has been in the past. Go and start it. You know, and I've heard this thing about the pink tax, for example, and how they charge things which are or feminine products more than men, because women are willing to pay more for them. If you don't like it, don't buy it. Or go and start our own business, because there's a market out there for that.
Going back to what makes people do things, just before we went on this subject, what makes women... We talked about what makes women give in to Harvey Weinstein, and we talked about two reasons why they may or may not complain, but the third one is likability, because research shows that people are much more likely to complain if they don't like you. If they like you and you do something wrong, they're not going to complain, much less likely if they don't like you. And the trouble is, Harvey Weinstein is such a dislikable guy. I mean, he looks like a complete psychopath. And look what he's doing now in court. He's lost loads of weight. He's playing on the sympathy vote, hobbling in. And again, emotion. They're playing on emotion, on people's emotion.
And you know, and the thing is, and if he didn't manipulate them to be able to, or coerce them into doing that, saying, I won't give you this, he's going to be dislikable. Now, will people still go and do it? Absolutely. And I've known a woman who got herself into trouble because she was looking for promotion in one of the large corporate iconic companies, and she actually went and actually targeted one of the C-level executives, basically in order to actually get that promotion. But when the time came and she was put in that situation, she couldn't actually control the situation, and actually had to be had to be saved in some ways from it. Knowing what he was like, you know, knowing that he was an alcoholic, knowing that he was bipolar to a degree.
But let's go back to what you said about coercing. I will give you this film role if you sleep with me. Is that coercing?
It's manipulation.
Why? It's a quid pro quo.
It is a quid pro quo, and that's a decision. But the thing is, but it could also be that actually you won't have a career in Hollywood unless you sleep with me. And if your only purpose in life is to be an actress, then
but he's not the only route in. You see, it's not as if...
Oh, no, but they do all talk.
It's not a life and death situation. It's not as if she's starving and she's about to die of hunger. And
well,
he's saying...
Actually, hold on a second. There's many very successful actresses who struggle to pay their rent in the early stages of their career. You know, who were waitressing, they were working part-time, looking to go to auditions. Now, you know, the casting couch terminology didn't just come out of nothing. It became... It's renowned throughout the acting world. And actually, not in America, just in every country, on what you want. And the thing is, what sacrifice are you willing to make to actually do it? Because, you know, if you want to sleep with someone you don't particularly want to actually get a role, to actually further your career, that is a sacrifice. But also, there's one thing, because you talked about there was a fourth... What was the third thing about Harvey, you know, the situation with Harvey Weinstein? Actually, there's probably a fourth. which is what's come out now, and that's the herd mentality that people follow because we are tribal. Because one person's come out, two persons come out, three, but all of a sudden everybody's come out, and everyone's actually following suit. Everyone's following the herd.
And equally, in the beginning, everyone was doing what they needed to do. You sleep with Harvey, you get your film role.
Yeah, so there you go. So, but it is. It's a herd thing, because if she's doing it, then, and she's done it, and that's the rumour that's gone around, then I should do it. Because all of a sudden, because you know 2 or 3 people who've done it, guess what? And you think actually that's part of the norm, and then you're following a herd mentality type thing, because we do.